Hi everybody, it's Thursday again, and welcome to Nocturne Time. I haven't done one for quite a while, and they're fun to do, especially if you're at a plein air event. But the thing about a nocturne is it's, hi Mary, and we're going to use Eric's picture today. I'm wondering if it's around where you guys live. But anyway, a nocturne is primarily a wet into wet kind of situation. You need to keep the surface not dry in most places, in fact, maybe even just about everywhere. And then the consistency of the paint becomes the primary issue. We always talk about, hi Eileen, I always talk about that the important thing about watercolor is knowing what happens when a particular consistency of paint is applied to a particular condition of the paper. In this case, the condition of the paper is going to be water on the surface and somewhat soaked in for the majority of the painting. And then the paint that is subsequently applied has to be much less water, a lot more pigment, a creamy sort of consistency. And one of the things that doesn't get talked about is the consistency of the paint in the pockets on the pan. To do this successfully, you need to have paint that is relatively fresh or can be made rich and creamy. At least so that you can get a very slow moving, in fact, not moving consistency, which most of the paint is going to be mixed up here. I'll do initially a couple of washes and then apply them. And that will wet the sheet overall. And then we're going to start applying these thicker consistencies of paint. So what I'm going to do to get that very, very bright light there, I'm going to take a circle of tape here. Hi, Diane. And I'm going to place it about where I want that light to be. I think I may have a little more sky or a little more above the car, a little less below it. And so let's get our pencil and find our key horizontal, which will be this, and it's on a lovely slight diagonal. I'm going to have it in a little above third on this side, a little below a third on this side. Hi, Eric. Great picture, man. Okay, so if you look at this, I think I want to show a little bit of the road on the other side of the car. So I'm going to make sort of like a Thunderbolt Nike swoop shape to indicate that. Even a little more slow. I like the downhillness of it. It's maybe I'll make the road a little wider here because there's not a lot going on there. The action is going to be focused all around here. So I'm going to place the masking tape circle there. Our car, we're going to want to have it somewhere here. So what I'm doing is I'm making a light rectangle to get the size of the vehicle, and I guess I need to make it slightly tilted because this road is a little bit, so that the whole thing is going to fit into a rectangle like that. So, yeah, let's see. Hey, hi, Cindy. Hi, Cousin Dennis. Yeah, let's make it like this. I can erase what I don't want. Thanks, Jeff. So, I know where it is. That's the important thing. That's the thing. So, it's also, we've got a problem here. It makes it hard to draw a car. It's at a slightly 3/4 angle. Or maybe like 4/5. So, I'm just going to demonstrate this kind of roughly. Here is our rectangle. And this will be, I hope, will indicate the easiest way to draw a car in 3/4, 4/5, looking in a, oh my goodness, we got the class. Well, hello class, how are you guys doing? So here's our rectangle. I'm going to cut a 1/4 of it or 1/5 of it off, whichever is appropriate to the angle that I'm looking at it. Then the next thing I want to do is I want to find what are the general proportions, oops, let's blow up here, of the roof, the windscreen, the hood, and the grille. These are horizontal measurements, so it's a little above the ground about here. Windscreen, okay, the top of it, a little bit of the top is showing because it's pointing downhill at us. Windscreen, fairly narrow. Hood. Okay, now let's start. We're going to treat this exactly the way the designer of the automobile treated it when they designed it. They get a square rectangular lump of clay and then they start shaving off. So first thing we want to do is we want to get the angle. This looks like I could have a little more hood and a little less windscreen. And then we want to get the side, which is slightly angled, like that. The hood is going to have a slight curvature. There's a grill underneath. We'll just make up a grill. It looks like a Toyota wagon or something. Headlights. Front wheel well. Rear wheel well. Side windows. So let's start taking off anything that we don't need. Now the tires, remember it's a modern car, they come out to the edge, front and back, so we'll get the fronts first. The back ones are going, because we're going uphill, hi Jackie, will appear to be a little lower. So let's darken this up. License plate. And hopefully we get a car that doesn't look like a toy. So, I could monkey with these proportions a little bit, but this is the idea. Hopefully that comes across. I've probably got a little more windscreen than I actually need. So, get the pencil. All right, roof, windscreen, hood and grille, ground clearance. Start shaving off the angle, just like I was the car's designer. I'm making this thing a lot wider than it actually is. So I didn't really need a rectangle that wide, did I? But once you've got the general hang of this, you can adjust it easily, because you're not trying to adjust this complicated contour, you're trying to adjust a simple geometric shape. Which is a lot easier. I'm going to give it some, still a bit wide, but we're going to say it's a high performance vehicle. Why not? I love this photo because it just seems to have such narrative quality. I can just invent all kinds of stories, what's going on here. You know, there's somebody waiting to commit a crime in that car. Maybe there's a couple that are, you know, guy's about to propose to the girl. We don't know what's going on here. So I'm going to indicate this is where the utility pole is going to be. I'm going to make marks here about where I want these there. You see the blue area back there? Looks like the state of Maryland with a much wider western Maryland. But there's a piece of West Virginia. You know, I always look for stupid shape things that help me find what an inorganic, or rather an organic or a natural shape looks like. I don't really want to paint those trees yet. I want to make them happen. So that's probably all the drawing that I'm going to need to do. Maybe I'll erase some lines that I don't need, or pencil work that I don't need. Put the pencil away. Okay. We got, what are our light colors? We always work light to dark. I've got light yellows and oranges here. The brightest spot I'm going to leave white, and maybe I'll tint it later. Yellow coming out to orange, to yellow, to yellow-orange. Up here, a pale dusky blue. Down here, browns and red browns, deep greens for the, whatever this tree is here. Some deep greens here, a blue-violet, gray, asphalt kind of color. So my lightest colors are the blues, the yellows, and the oranges. So I am going to get the sheet wet for this wet and wet process by putting on those 2 or 3 colors in a wash on a dry sheet of paper. So the other thing that will accomplish is the top, because I'm on about a 40-degree, 45-degree angle here, the water's going to shear down the page. This end will be a little drier, this end will be a little wetter, and this is the end that needs to have all the wet-on-wet application going. Up here, when I want to do these little distinct marks, it'll be better if it's drier. So, first thing I'm going to mix up, down here I'll get a big yellow. The colors I'm using today are looks like a cad yellow lemon, probably something like a new gamboge. I'm going to put some of that over here. These are runny. You can watch them run. A cat orange. Yeah, look, cat. It's either cat orange or as does it orange. What matters is the consistency of the paint. Hi, Miriam. More than the color name or the recipe for the color, it needs to be a particular consistency, and runny is the consistency we need initially. Then I'm going to, into that, put a little bit of red as I get a little further down, and then I may work in some purple. I've got some kind of, looks like, it's a Daniel Smith purple. It's mostly ultramarine, and I'm probably a little bit of the quinacridone rose. I've got alizarin crimson, quinacridone rose. Looks like some sort of cadmium red light or vermilion. Yeah, something like that. Burnt umber, a quinacridone sienna, ultramarine cerulean. Can't get by without those two. In fact, I got to have a big puddle of this cerulean, don't I? So this is going to have to be kind of runny, even though I'm putting it up here. So I'm going to start in with some blue, kind of come down like that. You'll see it happen. Let's put a little ultramarine in. What the heck? First, initially we'll be doing a beaded wash. Make sure that's good and down. Okay, here we go. With a runny cerulean mix. Big squirrel mop to get the bead going. So you notice I'm getting the bead going down here because I need to go a little lower with the blue. That's waiting for me. Well, I need to go down here as well, don't I? A little bit, some in there. Now I'm going to rinse that brush really good. Now I'm going to go into my yellow. I'm going to bring it up here and just kiss this. I'm going to get into the orangier yellow. I'm going to put a little more orange in it, I think. Now that's going to look like a tie-dyed shirt, and that's what we want. Because there are going to be very crisp shapes going on there. Let's even start to get a little redder. Around here where the trees are. Notice there's beads forming. That waits for me so that I can pick up with the next color and get a relatively... Now I'm going to stop at the top of the car. Or maybe not. Let me think. Yeah, I'm going to go back to my yellows now. As I come down to the road. And this is going to look rather... Oh, shoot. Let's go through that car. Because that light is, they're going to say it's a white car. It looks like it is, or silver. So it's going to reflect that. Now, redder. Notice it gets redder here. And on the blue with the red, get this. Hi, Vicky. I'm going to get an off color going here. I'm going to start in on the purple. And some ultramarine. The asphalt in this picture, to my eye, looks rather purplish under this light. So what's happening, it's getting a little drier up there. And down here, it's going to stay pretty wet because the water is running downhill. And let's see, I might put a little bit of sienna in this now as I get forward, and some purple. Okay, now, rinsing the brush, blotting the brush on a towel. Hi, Ann. Oh, yeah, memory at our age it's a different thing, isn't it? So watch what happens when I put, well, should I do that? Maybe I shouldn't. No. At this stage, I'm touching it. It's still cool. There's a little bit of water on the surface, very little bit. There's some of it, most of it soaking into the page. But as long as there's some water on the surface, then anything I put in is going to kind of blend and bleed. So I need to put in, because there's water there, I need to put in richer mixes of paint. So I'm going to go for my trees now. So you see how that doesn't run, stays in place. It's very hard to convey the consistency of this paint. Without being able to feel it through the brush. So I'm trying to think. Now see, I put a little water, that gets runnier. It's slightly sticky, that's why it stays pretty much where you put it. So I'm going to start, well, I'm just going to, with the side of the brush, I'm going to try to get this reddish area of these trees here. And I'm going to splatter to get the, now you see that's not blending in like it is down here. Because it's wetter down. Whoops, let's see. Oh, okay, what do you do when you've overshot? Get some orange or some yellow, something runnier, and push it out. Blot. Now in here I want the, and this is not, I'm going to do a lot of talking here, aren't I? This is not the last application of paint that will occur in any of these areas. So I want to get something that's raggedy and tree-like while leaving a halo. Now see, I'm getting a little too much into my, oops, doggone it, halo around the light there. So I'm going to have to get in with some yellow and push that stuff out. Rinse, blot. See how the yellow is kind of pushing the other color out? So maybe I'll get a bit more of this sienna because I don't want to let it get too dry here. Down it goes. Look at that. See, that's very wet down there. So what happens when something like that? Recover it. Get your purple. It's going to be very wet down here now. If you see something that looks dangerous like that, rinse, squeeze, drink it up. I'm on the tip I'm trying to get something that's a bit more. And it's going to look like we're definitely going to be working with the holy mess stage, as I like to call it, for quite a while. As the dark shapes begin to grow into this, or the sienna, see, slow moving. And of course there's darks over top of this, so this is not the final statement there either. Now, let's see, where do I want to... I'm going to get the smaller brush, rinse, squeeze, mop. More purple. Purple and burn umber and ultramarine blue. It's a holy mess. It's going to look like a holy mess. Get some more of that right down there. So if you put something in and it's too runny, it's going to create a light spot. If you put something in that's thicker, you notice I'm sticking right into the tube strength here. It sort of stays put. That's the whipped cream on the hot cocoa that I'm always talking about. Now up here, I'm going to get the smaller brush. Jackie says, is wet on wet, clear water on paper first and then brush with paint? It can be. In this instance, rather than put the water on to wet the paper, I put on the blue and the yellow and the orange, and that wets the paper. Since those colors needed to be there, and I wanted this area to be a bit drier. So now I'm mixing up a darker rusty red that's slow moving to indicate some of these things here. So right now where that brown had been splattered, you notice that's melting in. That's because there was water there from the previous application. I may even do a bit more splatter to get these fine branches, and then pull out with the point of the brush to indicate those. Now, these are not yet the last. I'm working into this area while it's damp. I'm going to put a little bit of, let's see, the red in this. And I'm trying to stay away from my halo of my light. So if I just touch that into that, it spreads out into where I had painted. But over here where the blue is dry, I can make a mark and it stays put because it's drier. So I'm going to get paint on the brush. See how it makes a footprint? And I'm going to, with the side of the brush, I'm going to try to get some broken strokes up here. And I promise this will eventually look like what we think we're dealing with here. Rinse. Slow moving. Now what you can't see now is I'm visualizing these darker shapes out here. What I'm doing now is this ruddy, rusty, looks like oaks or hickories or some kind of maple or something that's in the background here. So because that surface is wet, so I'm using my reddish colors, I need to use runnier, slower moving, thicker paint. Hope maybe it'll help. Hi, Frida. If here's a blank piece of the same paper, to show you what the consistency of this looks like on dry paper, it's like that. You see, there's not much water in there, and if it's kind of tacky, it's a little bit maybe similar to house paint, maybe, or non-Greek yogurt, or sour cream, creme fraiche, something like that. I'm going to put a little more red in this, maybe some alizarin even, or some Quin Rose. And again, there's this slow-moving mix. Now see, because it's thick and the surface is wet, it will more or less stay where I put it. I wanted to kind of miss the pole there, and it's spreading towards it. But now, as we get closer to, it gets a little more orange. So now that's a lot wetter. You see how that moves further than it did up here? That's because that surface, as we get closer to the bottom, we're getting wetter. Put a little of that in here. Perhaps a little bit of that up there. And again, like I say, these are not the last colors that are going to be applied here. I think it's dry enough to cut around the car a little more carefully. Now, it's much wetter here, so what do? Thicker, stiffer paint. If it was too runny, thank you. Oh, good. I'm glad that helped, Jackie. If it's too runny, it would create a light spot, which we don't want. Now, I want to get a little darker, and up towards the top, this area here. So I'm going to get right into the raw burn umber and maybe some ultramarine. Boy, that definitely feels like yogurt or sour cream. Each time I apply something, I'm bringing some water to the surface. So every time I go back and get a new color and work in the same area, I have to be careful. Let's add a little bit of Prussian. That just does not move at all. And it feels tacky, slightly tacky under the brush. so that as I bring it to it, I'm not wetting the surface to the point, rinsing the brush, blotting the brush so that I don't bring any new water. I'm going to start changing to a orangier mix over here. Orangier brown, if that's a thing. See, because up here where it's dry, I get a very just distinct mark, just as I did here. Pulling on the side of the brush, I can get a nice dry brush. Let's get into more of that ultramarine, or, well, maybe not that thick here. A little bit runnier. So I'm getting so when you paint these shapes, push against the brush. Splatter. And the trick to splattering is knowing which direction the point of the brush is going, and then you could smear them together. Now that surface, because I've done this, I've applied paint, right? So it's wet, so anything I add to this, and I know it's going to look like a mess for now, will not go anywhere other than where some water has been applied. This area is dry. So let's get a lot of that going. I like that. Prussian blue, burnt umber, which gives us a weird kind of green. And maybe a little water, because that's dry. I don't need it to be that. So when I touch into where I have painted, it melts in, but when I touch where it is dry, it leaves a distinct mark. Now over here where it was wetter, let's get a little more brown in it. I need to go to the thicker paint. And there's even some of that, I think, over here. I think I see that. Let's take this out so it doesn't look like a big eyeball. So maybe that'll help it look a little more like what we're shooting for here. Okay, now I need a big glob of this Prussian burnt umber. Let's even get a little bit of some greenish, yellowish kind of color. Side of the brush. I'm looking for where are these shapes. As I push the brush, I'm going to get an organic, irregular kind of form out of it. So I need to know where I'm going to do it, because since I can't really control the contour perfectly, I need to be cognizant of where am I sticking it and how big is the shape that I'm making. Now this area down here, from about here down, it's much wetter, so you can see when I stick this in, I need to be thick and tacky and feeling like sour cream or yogurt. Now down over here, it's a little browner, coming under there. So this is staying sort of where I put it, and not going too much further. browner or maybe redder. Yeah, much redder. Redder still. Gee whiz. How about now? I might even have to go to orange. I don't need, it's getting it really thick now, so I need a little bit of water. So, yeah, that's more like what I'm wanting. Okay. That area back in there is quite reddish. My goodness. Yep. Here we go. It's going to be very wet back there. Well, no. Sum all of this together, mush it all together. Throw a bit of that into here. More Prussian. Now, the underside of this, to get some variation in the greens, which you don't see much of it, because I've already painted some there, on the lower, the lower sides of these irregular shapes, I'm going to put a bit more so that it simulates the bottom getting less light than the top or maybe the side. And there's even a pole here, isn't there? Which I'm going to keep in the same value range. See, that is getting a lot drier here. Disappears up into the greenery. A little more of the blue. Let's even get into some purple. That will require a bit of water because it's really getting thick now. And I am showing a bit more anatomy in the tree than the photo does. Because I'm thinking that the exposure on an image like this is probably going to silhouette quite a bit. And that were you there, you would see a bit more of that sort of thing. Now, getting into the purple, I worked there recently, so it's going to be rather damp. So I just slamming in with just paint. I really need it to be dark. A nocturne is mood and contrast. Contrast always seems to suggest mood better than well, I can't say that because I've seen very lovely sort of pale paintings. There's who knows what it is, garbage can or something, but it's just an object there. Casting a bit of a shadow. The curb. So yeah, this is getting very dry down there. I may even have to spritz it. I'm going to pull some downward strokes here because it looks like it might be a fur of some sort. And I'm going to get a little bit more branchy type action, and I need a big shape up here. Let's get some browner, well, no, yeah, browner, redder, sienna. Yeah, I'm going to get a lot more red in here because I just put some green there, and them being rough complements, I think it'll look nice. But okay, now I've got a puddle down here that I'm going to mop up. Let's get a little bit more. Now there are 1, 2, 3 poles. Let's see, do I want them all? I know I want this one. I have to have that one. Stiff purple. That area needs to be very strong and dark because it is, and I'm going to get right into the purple and maybe just a bit of water. Anything that is against the light is probably going to be fairly dark. Oh, yeah. Prussian blue, pretty stiff. Burn umber, which with the Prussian blue tends to go slightly brownish green. Oddly enough, I don't know why that is. Gonna bang that in there pretty strong and join up with our coniferous tree, leaving a few little skips. That plus some yellow ochre to get a, or even some of the other yellow to get a lighter, more olivey green over here. Leaving a little bit of that red showing in places. I swear we're going to get there. We really are. And I apologize if you can hear the cat. He's door activated. Hi, Nanette. Ginger, you're going to have to muse yourself. Go play with your brother. Okay, now that we've got that in there, I might put a little bit of yellow ochre right out of the pocket, kind of. Asya, hello, I see you. Looking forward to the tutorial this evening. Yes, it's a little dry there. I'm going to get some red and some purple, slow-ish moving. Now down here it's a lot wetter. That's probably need to be blue, right? Let's put a little water and a little bit of orange, which we had left over. Well, thank you, Nanette. Make those edges a little wetter, warmer, orangier. Because we will get to the shadow under the car in short order. That is still pretty dark. So I'm going to pile some ultramarine blue into that to make a slow-moving mix, maybe a little more purple. Coming in underneath where we were just painting and meeting up with it. And I'm even going to leave a few of these blue spots there to suggest maybe the cracks or whatever, or the patching that's occurred. Northeast Iowa is significant winters. The roads take a beating. Now, let's see. We can have some fun right now. I'm looking at this sideways. I'm going to get I might be able to scrape out the pole. Oh, it's going to be too sharp. I need my fingernail. Not too wet. So what I'm going to do is rinse this brush very good. And I'm going to start softening this edge to get a more eerie glow. Now I may have to squeeze it out. Hi Carol, hope everything went good at the vets. And mop up high because I made it wet, those colors will draw down, but down here I'll get it'll do it, the water will do the job for me. Now also I can rinse this out very good in clean water, and I can soften the edge around the white too. Leave a little bit of pure white right in the middle. And okay, so I think we're just about, do I want to add any more darks? Maybe, and they're very wet. So you see when I stick this slightly wetter mix in there, it really almost disappears. So just always remember that cup of hot cocoa. It's runny, and when you pour the milk in, it's just going to disperse and dissolve. You put the whipped cream on top, the edges will melt, but it will maintain its shape for the most part. We're going to deal with this pole a little later too. I might just take some stiff yellow ochre and push into that tacky, sticky, and let the water do the rest. There's a little light spot here. I don't know what that, I don't think it's a puddle, I think it's a lens artifact. So, the other thing I want to do is I want to soften this edge as well. And this, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to, let's see, put a little more orange into this halo. And then I'm going to get a little bit of this brownish greenish, and I want some more of this stuff out here. Now that's starting to bleed, so I'm going to need to let that get dry. Meanwhile, where can we paint that we need to paint? Let's get some turquoise, some cerulean, phthalo, get a dark teal color, dirty teal color, and we're going to do the windscreen. Get a bit of burn umber, and I don't like to do things exactly one side the same as the other. A little bit of something just nondescript on the, put my pinky finger there. That's dry enough. A bluish cerulean, let's get some cerulean with whatever's there. Hi, Judy. The front of the car. And okay, the bottom is very wet, so I have to wait on that. In fact, what I should probably do is dry that. If we want to do more wet and wet work, then we'll be able to spritz it with some water. Okay. Prussian, a red, a deep dark. Why didn't I just get some purple, right? And a little bit of what's around there. Underneath the cars, we're going to have our darkest shadow. Tires, cast shadow. The grill. well, let's see, how about our waste bin? Yeah, let's see. Suggest the curve. Suggest the curve over here too. The pole that's closest to us on the right, I'm going to get some Holbein lavender. And hit the side of it. Well, let's see. Let's mix it with some of this. It's a little too light. Suggests that it's catching a wee bit of the light. Even suggest the headlamps with that. A little bit of it there. Now this is maybe another way of thinking about this consistency of this paint. It's almost a gouache-like consistency because it's nearly the way it would come out of the tube, maybe not quite that dark or that thick, but I'm going to get some more brownish, reddish tones. This is the like vermilion or cad red light, burnt umber, burnt quinacridone sienna. I think I want to reinforce that area a bit more. Frame it a bit better. See, I'm getting a few more darks around the car there, which I'm hoping, let's get some blue in it. I'm hoping we'll sort of frame it and say, oh, this is our focal point. Pay attention. Don't wander over here and look at something there. And I think nocturnes are great that way. They really just really create mood, and because you can get that high level of contrast that you can't typically get with, or not usually, that's available to you when you're painting a daytime scene or something. So I'm going to get some, it's not quite dry yet, but I'm going to get the brush was squeezed out and damp. That's why it picks up the paint and makes that footprint. So I'm going to, well, wait a minute. There's so many ways to do it, right? Let's put some splatter. Make sure you're pointing the brush in a direction that you're not hitting something you don't want to hit. Okay, now we need to get our pole and our wires. And then I think we're just about there. One thing you can do is get clear water. And you can, oh, look at that. I'm getting too much halo. So I'm going to, there we go. Rinsing that brush, clear water, squeezing, and I'm going to try to lift a bit on our utility pole. Rinse it, squeeze it. These colors aren't good lifters, but they'll lift a bit. And if they don't, That's when we go to the white gouache. Get a small brush. Right into the nozzle. Maybe mix it with a little bit of orange so it's not dead white. A little more orange. Let's get some orange in it. I'm going to put something over there. I don't know what it is. Put a highlight on the top of the trash can. Something there. Who knows what it is. The support for the light. Try to do this wire. This is the old Shakespeare stroke. 'Twere done, 'twere best done quickly. Didn't quite get that one. Put it where it attaches to the pole. Okay, and I want to have, just to make sense of it all, get a little more of that orangey white. There. There. Perhaps back there. Okay. I'm looking at it. What do I want? What do I want? What do I want? I think I want a little bit of redishness or violetness in the shadow beneath the car. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Shadows are not always cold colors. They're very often especially when you have a style of lighting that is not LED or something like that. It's going to be warm. Let's get that a little brighter there, a little brighter there. Let's peel, see if that tells us anything. Okay. We've been at this for a while. Gee whiz. But the big trick to wet and wet is making sure that to get the effect you want, you need to bring a consistency of paint that is usually going to be thicker and or has less water than what's already there because the surface is wet and you don't want to create a light spot. So the paint has to be denser and you need to have paint that has been recently squeezed out or at least wetted up a good bit before you played around with it. So there we are. There's our car where two people are proposing to each other. And or planning a crime, whatever we want. We'll make it up. I'm just looking at it and I'm going to say I think I want a miscellaneous dark here or there. Suggest some trees in the back. Just to break that interval up. There was another pole over here, but I'm going to parlay it into a tree. Perhaps some directional marks on the road. And yeah, I believe that's about it. Well, thank you. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, students. And thank you so much for sending this wonderful photo, Eric. It's a real winner. And thank you, Jan. So, yeah, that is the big thing. It's when you're working wet into wet, you can either wet the sheet and the water will almost immediately start to soak in. Then each new application of paint has to be a denser consistency, less water because there's water already there. If you apply it and you see a light spot created, then you know the paint is got too much water. Hi, Rebecca. Thank you, Ann. You can mask a bright thing like that. If you apply initial wash, like in this case, a blue going to yellows to oranges to reddish violets, that wets the paper, and then this area stays drier because it's on an angle. So when you go to put in these more irregular shapes, they just don't melt in like they do down here. So I'm glad you guys enjoyed that. I'm glad you sent me this wonderful photo. Eric. Hopefully the little sidebar on how to draw cars in 3/4 was helpful. I think I did some cars a while back, but it might be fun to do some again. Vehicles. But I don't know, if you have a subject that you would like me to cover, by all means, shoot me a message or an email or a comment here on the Facebook, and I'll see if we can do something like that. So thank you guys for tuning in. I have fun doing this, and I'll see you next week. Oh, one more thing. Cindy's Art Beat in Fairfield is having, tomorrow and Saturday, is having a 10% off sale on all paper products. Sheet paper, roll paper, tracing paper, sketchbooks, pads, blocks, anything paper, 10% off. Great deal before Christmas. And you just can't have enough paper if you're a painter or an artist, because you got to draw. So, alrighty. Everybody stay safe, stay sane. Peace out.